Hey guys, a typical day here at Legacy Collectibles. That's right, we got a small collection in yesterday actually, and I'm going to do a video about it, and a shout out to Jerry. So today I'm going to focus on collecting. I'm doing a shout out to Jerry because he decided to cull the herd. You know what that means. It means I've got so many things and I need room in the safe. So I'm going to take some of my collection and begin to sell it off. And that's a way for me to remind everybody we do buy collections. And if you want to cull the herd or sell your collection, we'd love to get your treasures. And also, we'll do a shout out. Now, here's how that helps you is 20 years from now, when you talk about the collection you used to have, all you have to do is go to YouTube and say, well, here, let me show you my collection. So we're able to preserve it for history and show it to the public. Obviously, our goal is to sell these, but let's take a look at what Jerry collected. Now, like me, he collects German pistols. And most collectors like a variety of guns. And that's what we have here. He also liked rigs. I'm going to show you rigs and explain what that means. But also some of the same thing. These are Walther PPs. So I'm going to pull each one of them out. I'm not going to do a whole lot of history of the gun. I'm just going to do a real quick overview. This is what these guns are, and this is why he collected them. The first one I'm going to show you is a rig, and it's a CZ27. Come take a closer look. Okay, now what we consider a rig, by the way, is a correct holster. Usually the date on the holster is within 1 year. So it's either the year of the gun or the year before, year after. You can see here Mod 27. This is 1941, and there is a logo for the CZ in a circle. And the condition of the holster. Now I do sometimes see PPKs in this same type of holster with none of the writing on the back. So I think this was a CZ holster, but it later became a generic holster. Let's take a look at the gun. Now, usually a rig is the holster, the gun with a magazine, and then a spare magazine. But on this gun, he did not have the spare, and certainly those are available. Now, you'll notice this is a beautiful high polish finish, which means it's an early gun, certainly by 1941. That actually date works. You see it has a plastic one-piece grip, which is unusual. Usually there's a two-piece grip. The PPK is an example of another one-piece grip. There's the CZ logo. Typically you'll see straw, small part here, and then actually the hammer has a straw finish to it. Can't really see that real well. You can see down inside there. And then this has a straw finish to it. Now on the CZ, typically you'll see the Waffen stamp right here. And then there also will be one on top. It's hard to see, but it is right there. There's a Waffen stamp here on the top and a Waffen stamp here. If it's police, there'll be a police proof right here. Now, as the war went on, they became a dull finish. We'll see some later war, but on the CZ, this is the only one we have. These are fairly inexpensive guns. I'd say, well, they used to be $500 to $600. Now they might be more like $700 to $800. Now, talk about late war versus earlier. Here you see a late war finish. You'll notice the dull finish. It still has the logo. The logo is very, very faint. The reddish grip is very rare, and that would be one of the reasons you'd collect both of these. Here's the earlier high polish finish. This is beautiful. The early high polish finish will most often have a fire blue safety. But later on, they didn't care about the fire blue, so it's the same. Basically, it's the same bluing tank, but this is a duller finish. The straps are always thin. That people say, oh, it's worn. I think it actually came out of the factory with a very thin finish on it. Here's an example. This has a much heavier high polish finish. There's the bottom. And here's the other side. Let me wipe that off. That's why, it's the main reason I wear the gloves. It really helps in keeping the fingerprints off of it. You see the seal range, it's still crown end. So this is, I believe, 1938, before the war started. Once the war started, they were hurrying up, getting things out the door. And so then they cut some steps, and one of them being they used a cheaper finish, not as durable, They didn't care about beauty. They cared about utility. Remember, they were not making these for collectors. They were making them for war. So this is the earlier high polish, and that's why collectors, I want one of these, one of these. And by the way, if you're collecting PPs and PPKs, you also want one special contract. This is a special contract because it's an SA gun, Group Mitte. Now, SA Group, you know what the SA was, also known as the Stormtroopers. These are almost always, I'm trying to think, actually I will say, they are always a high polish finish because this is before the war. The SA groups were armed before the war started, and then a lot of them were subsumed into army units and had to fight. So a lot of the SA groups were disbanded, or at least the soldiers were drafted and that broke up the SA groups. They still had it's a long history that I won't go into, but there were SA groups all the way to the end of the war. But of course, the men had to serve in the armed forces at some level. Okay, so we see notice this has the finger extension, a little better condition. These are the flat bottom. Military and police, they use the flat bottom, but for commercial or special contracts, they would often use that little pinky finger. It does not extend the rounds, but it does supposedly give you a little more comfort on the pinky finger. In the Army, they don't care about your pinky. Okay, so there is an SA gun. Let's just get a look at the condition. Beautiful front strap. It's a little bit of patina. I said beautiful, but high polish with a little bit of patina. Most of these are going to have the black grip with the Walther banner. That's why I said these are a rare contract where they, for a very short period of time, for an unknown reason, they used red. And then finally, at the end of the war, they actually had wooden grips. And he did not, at least in this round, he did not have one of those. Okay, these next two are the same gun. And as soon as I saw it, without even opening the holster, I know that these are Italian, have to be Berettas. Now, there is a Walther PP that came in a green. This is a very dark green, but this is a green holster. There was a contract that went to the forestry, what we would call the Rangers, but the Forestry Service got green holsters for the Walther PP. But the Italian uniform, they used a lot more greenish hues, and therefore they did have green holsters. So these are two Italian Berettas. They are both going to be late war and both issued to the German army. And here's how we know. And by the way, both of these holsters are correct. They're correct Italian holsters. But this is a different style. Probably a little earlier because it's a little bit intricate. And then later they were just going with straight utility holsters. They're not stamped in any way. Sometimes there's an oval here, but it's long worn away. So whether or not it was there, I don't know. You can see how this was riveted in, has some metal. And this is just a much simpler design with no maker mark. So let's take a look at these two. Now I mentioned a lot of collectors, they don't want two of the same thing. I don't necessarily want two of the same thing, or if I upgrade, I get rid of one. But in the case of like an RZM, I'll take 10, just because they're good investments. These are both absolutely mint condition. I mean, you see some scuffing in here, but there's almost no wear. I always look at the front strap for wear. The other thing you want to look for is you want to look at the bores. Now, we can't really get that very well on camera unless I went to a lot of trouble. But you also, if you have a pristine gun and the bore is completely worn out, then I would say it's likely refinished. In this case, you have beautiful bores, hardly ever used. I think they both have a lot of grease in them. But these are pristine condition. And this is a 4UT, which was basically it went to the German military. That was a military inspector, German inspector, 4UT contract. Late war, 44 and 44. Both of them come in 7.65. The Italians preferred a 9mm short, but when the Germans put in orders, they wanted them in 7.65 because the rest of the officer sidearms were all 7.65, so it just made it more uniform. So this is just an extremely nice example. Both of these are extremely nice examples of late war German military contracts, and by this time, the Germans took over the factory. The Italians and forced labor were still working in the factories, but the orders were all coming from Germany by 1944 because the Italians had lost their spirit to continue the fighting. The next two are also rigs, and you see single guns coming up, but the next two are also rigs. This one has the black holster, probably dyed later. Yeah, I can tell that this was dyed. This was dyed later by the Germans because they changed the orders and certain units said we have to have black. And so originally this was probably brown. You're not going to be able to see it, but if you look down inside there, you can see that it was tan. It was this color. Because both of these are model 1934 Mausers. Doesn't mean they were made in 34. It was replaced by the HSC. I'm sure this collector has some HICs. I'm sure this collector has some HSCs in his collection, but they will probably be coming to us at a future date. For right now, I have two 1934 Mausers. Now, these are both absolutely stunning, but let's stick with the holster. There is a person's name, obviously a German's name, and a number. So we have a German's name and number. You can see the die. Again, this was done by the German order and went to somebody in the German army because that name tells me he was in the German army. And that, there's a Waffen stamp. So it was accepted into the military. This one has a Waffen stamp. And that's what makes this special. Not only is it beautiful, notice the high polish finish. So this was probably made in 1940 or probably 1940, and then in 1941 they started making a lot more of the HSCs and stopped producing the 1934. Right here is a Waffen proof and a test eagle. That proof is a 655, which tells me it was probably made in 1940. And here is the magazine. It's got a bottom release, sometimes cumbersome, but that's the magazine that goes with it. 7.65, as I mentioned before, the preferred round by the officers, not the rank and file, use 9mm. Officers tended to have smaller pistols. But look at the both sides of this gun and the front. This is as nice as they come and certainly worthy of my collection. I have to tell you right now, I'm very tempted. There is a Eagle N proof. So that also takes us to 1940. And the high polish finish tells me it was before the quality of the finish started to go downhill. So this is a beautiful rig, does not have a spare mag. I did find the spare. I said there's no, I was cheating the seller. I took this out to show you the inside and I totally forgot. Believe it or not, when I do videos, sometimes I get distracted. Okay, so this one is the exact same gun, except this still has the brown holster. It's AK. This would also fit a PPK. Very common to be seen with a PPK or any small caliber 7.65. This one will not be Waffen proof. No, there's no Waffen proof on this one. But if we look at the gun, now we have no spare. This one has a spare, this one does not. Same thing, almost the same gun. You look at the high polish finish. Notice the Waffen 655. Front strap has a little bit more wear than the other one. Well, the other one had no front, no wear. This one has a little more wear, not rare. And the magazine is Mauser marked, and I already showed you the bottom release magazine. Let's take a look at the other side of the gun. Little bit more wear right here. So the condition of this gun is not quite the same. And condition is everything at this level, meaning you'd say, well, this is only, let's say, 2% better, so therefore it'll sell for 2% more. Not in the collecting world. You will see many more just standard finish guns, and it's getting harder and harder to find the pristine guns because as people cull the herd, as I called it, as people get rid of guns and they have duplicates, they're going to hold on to the best to last. So usually the only time I get guns that are 98, 99% in this condition is when there's been a death in the family and the estate is just selling them off. So all that is to say this is as good as they get. This is just maybe 2% less, but it's an easier to find gun. Again, you get a Eagle N, and from the serial number, I'd say they both were made in about 39 or 40. So those are, again, model 1934 Mauser. Here's another one that tempts me. This is a Radom, also known as the VIS, also known as the Radom. You hear a lot of names for it, but right here you have VIS. It's in the A block, and you can see it has a really nice high polish finish. This one does come in 9mm. Obviously, these were made in Poland, and when the Germans took over Poland in 39 into 40, they took over the factory, and they began to make them for themselves. And there you see the Waffen stamps. This one has a side push-button release, and there's the magazine. Comes in, again, in 9mm. These are a favorite among collectors. And slotted, the early ones still had the slot, and that was for a stock, but the Germans never used the stock, so after about the D block, they no longer had the stock on there. So this, again, this is in the A block. This is also tempting me because it's very hard to find Radoms in this kind of quality. Usually they're very worn. A lot of them went to the Waffen troops, Waffen SS divisions, because, well, it's a long story, but a lot of these went to the Waffen SS troops. It was a favorite among them, that along with the Browning High Power. Now, that's no way of saying I can prove where this went, but I'm just saying for contractual reasons, a lot of these went to the Waffen SS troops, and this one, and usually they're beat up. This one is in remarkable condition, which will command a premium. The next two are very recognizable in that they are P38s. Both of them are BYF 44. Oh, no, they're not. Should have done my homework. BYF 44 and then SVW 45. So basically Mauser factory in 44, Mauser factory in 45. They're dual tones, which means phosphate frames. Notice how thin the finish is, and it's a gray color as opposed to a blue, which the barrels are blue. Look right underneath the barrel and you can see the contrast where that comes together. You see the blue barrel connecting to the phosphated frame. Dual tones sell for a premium. These are in 9mm. The SVW sells for a little bit more because they made far less. The factory was taken over in April, so they stopped producing them. And then the French came in and continued making them for the French army. So the French took over the factory in 45, continued producing these. These have the Waffen stamps and the Waffen stamps. Now they should, these are the correct black grips, and that's phosphate. But the magazines are usually a late war contract, and so it is. This is a late contract magazine, and so is this one. So these are just two really nice examples of dual tone Mauser made P38s. Okay, I've just got a couple more to show you. To conclude this culling of the herd, again, this is not his whole collection, but this is a phenomenal collection. Quality guns, no refinished guns, all matching. If you're going to collect, I like to collect quality. However, if you just want shooters, definitely get, you know, things that have been refinished or mismatched guns, take them to the range, shoot the heck out of them. I have no problem with somebody buying a pristine gun and taking it to range and put a magazine or two through it. But I do get letters from people say, hey, I bought this Luger from you. It's absolutely gorgeous. I put 1,000 rounds for it, and now it's starting to jam. Can you take care of that for me? You can't get the proper replacement parts. You can get modern reproduction parts, but these are not range warriors. This is a collectible gun that goes up in value, and if you go and shoot the crap out of this thing, then you're going to lose part of your investment. So, yes, you can shoot them. Yes, they're usable. These are not range warriors. This is an Astra 300 rig. Again, going back to the rig. There's the spare magazine. This holster is dated, and that's the proper date for the gun. You can see the Waffen Eagle, test eagle, I guess. That means it was approved for the military. Here's the gun of itself. These come in two calibers. This one is 9mm, which is a good punch when you shoot it because it is a small pistol. About the size of a PP, and in 9mm, that packs a punch. You can see the quality, some fire blue here. 9mm, they also made them in 7.65. Just that's an Astra 300. Usually has the Astra mark here. And again, these came from Spain. Spain was officially neutral, but they did help the Germans an awful lot. You do see the Waffen stamp here. Now let's compare that to the Astra 600. These all came in 9mm. This was 9mm Luger. So this is the Astra 600. You can see it's almost an exact copy. So the Astra 300 rig with a Waffen stamp. Another Waffen stamp. This is an Astra 600. Notice the condition. Full, doesn't have the spare magazine, but this is a correct Astra 600 holster. Oh, there's a maker. Stola. Stella! I think it's Stola, not Stella. That's the Astra 600 holster, and this is the Waffen stamped Astra 600, again, 9mm. And this is the exact same thing, slightly different holster. This one is a rig, full rig, because we'd have the spare mag. Not a big deal to have the spare mag. They are available. And magazines, spare magazines can be anywhere from $100 to $200 depending on what it is. Luger magazines are going for a couple hundred. These go for maybe $120. So you can always pick up the spare magazines. I don't see a maker mark on this, but the quality of the holster is just a little bit better. This is a little better holster. And there's the gun. Let's pull it out, compare them. Again, 9mm. You can see here and here. We'll call that on the tang. On the tang is the Waffen stamp. See the serial number. Both of them made in, I think, 43. There's the front straps. You see the top of the gun has the Astra logo at the top. And then, again, from Spain to the German Army. On the backstrap, you see this one is slightly better. So the condition of the holster is slightly better, condition of the gun, but both are highly collectible pieces that will continue to go up in value just because of the popularity of collecting. World War II items in particular, this hobby continues to grow. And actually, channels like this, Legacy Collectibles channel, is one reason that this hobby continues to grow in popularity. Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel, and think about if you ever want to cull the herd. One more special shout out to Jerry. Thanks for trusting us with your treasures.